The sound of shattering glass echoed through the brownstone at 3 a.m. Min-jae was out of bed before his eyes fully opened, his body moving on instinct that 18 months of domestic peace hadn't erased. He grabbed the Glock from the false bottom of his nightstand drawer and moved silently toward the nursery, his bare feet making no sound on the hardwood floor. Ariel was already awake, her hand pressed against his chest as he passed their bedroom door. Her eyes were wide but steady, her other hand clutching the baby monitor. On the screen, Lena slept peacefully in her crib, her tiny chest rising and falling with the oblivious rhythm of innocence. "Stay with her," Min-jae whispered. "Lock the door. Min-jae." "Now, Ariel." She obeyed, but not before he saw the flash of anger in her eyes. Anger at the command, at the fear, at the return of a world they thought they'd left behind. The nursery door clicked shut, and he heard the deadbolts slide into place. Min-jae descended the stairs, weapon raised, every shadow a potential threat. The broken window was in the kitchen, shards of glass glittering like scattered diamonds across the tile floor. The cold November wind pushed through the opening, making the curtains dance. But there was no intruder, no movement, just a brick wrapped in paper lying in the middle of the destruction. He approached it carefully, checking every corner, every possible line of attack. When he was certain he was alone, he knelt and unwrapped the paper with one hand, his gun still trained on the window. The message was simple, written in Korean characters he hadn't seen in nearly 2 years, the dragon remembers. "Payment is due." Min-jae's blood ran cold. Only one person called him the dragon. Only one person would dare. The phone in his pocket vibrated. Unknown number. He answered without speaking. "Did you really think you could just walk away?" The voice was smooth, accented, familiar in the worst way. "Did you think we wouldn't notice when our most valuable asset decided to play house with a social worker? This is between us, Zhao. Leave her out of it." "Oh, Min-jae, that's not how this works. You taught me that, remember? You find what someone loves and you take it from them, slowly, methodically, until they beg you to end it." The line went dead. Min-jae stood in his kitchen, surrounded by broken glass and broken illusions, and felt the weight of every choice he'd ever made pressing down on him like a physical force. He had killed for the organization. He had built empires on blood and fear, and now that empire had come to collect its debt. Upstairs, he heard Ariel unlock the nursery door. Her footsteps were quick, purposeful. She appeared at the top of the stairs, holding Lena against her chest, the baby still sleeping despite the chaos. "What was it?" Ariel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Min-jae looked at his wife, at his daughter, at the life he'd fought so hard to build. Then he looked at the brick in his hand, at the message that promised their destruction. "Everything," he said. "It was everything coming back." Dawn broke gray and cold over Brooklyn. Min-jae sat at the kitchen table, the brick and its message in front of him, his phone casting a pale glow across his face as he scrolled through news reports he'd spent 18 months avoiding. 3 of his former lieutenants dead in the past 6 months, 2 more missing. The organization he'd once commanded had fractured after his departure, splintering into warring factions that were now being systematically eliminated by someone with resources, patience, and a very specific grudge. Ariel came downstairs wearing his old Columbia sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in a messy bun. She'd put Lena back down after feeding her, and now she moved around the kitchen with deliberate calm, making coffee as if this were just another morning. But Min-jae knew better. He could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands shook slightly as she poured water into the machine. "Are you going to tell me what's happening, or are we doing the silent protection thing again?" She didn't turn around, didn't look at him, because I remember how well that worked out last time. Min-jae set his phone down. "Someone's consolidating power, taking out everyone connected to my old operation. They killed Jin-ho last week in Los Angeles. Made it look like a robbery. Marcus disappeared in Chicago 3 months ago. They found parts of him in the lake." Ariel's hand stilled on the counter. "Parts. This is what we do, Ariel. What we did. When you want to send a message, when you want people to understand that resistance is futile, you don't just kill. You make examples. You make people afraid to even think about opposing you." She turned then, her eyes blazing. "Don't you dare say we. You left that world. You chose differently. Did I? Or did I just pause? Because that brick suggests the world didn't leave me." "Then unpause, Min-jae." She crossed the kitchen and sat down across from him, her hands flat on the table between them. "Tell me everything. Not the sanitized version, not the I'm protecting you version. Everything. Who is Zhao? Why does he want you dead? What payment is he talking about?" Min-jae studied his wife's face, seeing the determination there, the refusal to be sheltered or diminished. This was why he'd fallen in love with her in the first place, this core of steel wrapped in compassion. She'd stood in a hospital room 18 months ago and demanded truth, and she was demanding it again now. Zhao Wei was my partner. We built the New York operation together. I handled enforcement and expansion. He managed logistics and money laundering. When I decided to leave, I took something that belonged to both of us. Information, connections, leverage. I thought it would be enough to buy my freedom, to make sure no one came after us. But it wasn't. Apparently not. Min-jae reached for his coffee, more for something to do with his hands than because he wanted it. Zhao consolidated power after I left, absorbed the other factions. Now he controls everything from Boston to Miami. And he wants what I took. More importantly, he wants revenge. I embarrassed him by walking away. I made him look weak. Ariel was quiet for a long moment, processing. Then she asked the question he'd been dreading. "What did you take from him?" "Account numbers. Offshore holdings. Names of corrupted officials. Evidence that could bring down his entire operation and send him to prison for the rest of his life." "Where is it?" "Safe. Protected. He'll never find it." "Then why is he coming after us?" "If he can't get the information, why risk?" She stopped, understanding flooding her face. "I'm the leverage. Lena and I are how he gets to you." Min-jae nodded, unable to speak past the rage and fear choking him. Ariel stood abruptly, walking to the window to stare out at the empty street. "How long do we have?" "I don't know. He's patient. He'll build slowly, apply pressure in stages. Today was just a message. Tomorrow he'll escalate." "Good." Min-jae's head snapped up. "What?" She turned back to him, and he saw something new in her face. Not fear, not resignation. Something harder, sharper. "I said good. If he's going to escalate, that means we have time. Time to prepare, time to plan, time to figure out how to protect our daughter without you becoming the monster you used to be." "Ariel, no, listen to me." She walked back to the table and leaned down, her hands on either side of his face, forcing him to look at her. "I'm not running. I'm not hiding. I'm not letting this man take away the life we built. But I'm also not letting you throw away everything you've become to fight him. There has to be another way." "There isn't. You don't understand how this works. Then explain it to me. Teach me. Because I'm not the naive social worker you met anymore, Min-jae. I've seen what love looks like in the darkness. I've learned that strength isn't just about who can hurt who the most, and I'll be damned if I let you face this alone." The baby monitor crackled with Lena's first sounds of waking. Ariel straightened, moving toward the stairs, but she paused at the doorway. "Call David," she said. "If there's a mole, if someone inside your old organization is feeding Zhao information, David will find them. And Min-jae, no more secrets. Not about this. Not about anything. We're in this together, or we're not in it at all." She left him sitting in the kitchen with his coffee and his guilt and the growing realization that his wife was right. Running wouldn't save them. Hiding wouldn't save them. The only way through this was straight ahead, with all the messy, dangerous truth exposed. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he'd programmed 18 months ago but never used. David answered on the first ring. "I was wondering when you'd call. You heard?" Jin Ho was my friend too. I've been tracking this since the first body dropped. Zhao's making his move, and he's doing it smart, using cutouts, hiring independents, keeping his hands clean. But there's a pattern if you know where to look. Can you find the leak? Already did. You're not going to like it. Min-jae's grip tightened on the phone. "Tell me, Angela Chen. She's been feeding Zhao information since the day you left. Every move you made to legitimize your holdings. every asset you converted, every connection you severed. She gave him everything. Angela, his former accountant. The woman he trusted to help him transition out of the organization cleanly. The woman he'd paid generously for her loyalty. Where is she? Gone. Disappeared 2 days ago. But Min-jae, that's not the worst of it. What else? Zhao's hired someone. A specialist. Russian, former Spetsnaz. Works exclusively in wet operations. He arrived in New York yesterday. And the last 3 targets he was contracted for? All had families. Min-jae felt his blood turn to ice. How long? Hours, maybe days. He'll scout first, learn your routines, find the vulnerabilities. Then he'll strike. Get over here. Now. We need to move Ariel and Lena somewhere safe. Already on my way. And Min-jae, get ready for war, because that's what this is now. The line went dead, and Min-jae sat in his kitchen, in the house he'd bought to symbolize his new life, and felt the old life wrapping around him like chains. He'd thought he could escape. He'd thought love would be enough to keep the darkness at bay. But the darkness had followed him home, and now it was threatening everything he'd fought to protect. Upstairs, he heard Ariel singing softly to Lena, a lullaby about stars and dreams and all the beautiful lies parents tell their children about how safe the world is. Min-jae stood and went to the window, scanning the street for threats he knew were coming. And he made a decision. If Zhao wanted war, he would get war. But this time, Min-jae wouldn't fight alone. David arrived within the hour, bringing with him 2 men Min-jae recognized from his old life. Former military, loyal to a fault, the kind of people who understood that some fights didn't have clean solutions. They swept the brownstone for surveillance devices, finding 3 bugs and a GPS tracker attached to Ariel's car. The efficiency of the operation was chilling. He's been watching for weeks, David said, laying the devices out on the kitchen table like evidence at a crime scene. Every conversation, every movement. He knows your routines, your patterns. Where you shop, where Ariel takes Lena for walks, which pediatrician you use. Ariel stood against the counter, her arms crossed, her face pale but composed. Then we change everything. It's not that simple, one of David's men said. His name was Marcus, no relation to the dead lieutenant, and he had scars that told stories Min-jae recognized. These aren't amateurs. They've been watching, learning, planning. Changing your routine just makes you unpredictable for a few days. Then they adapt. So what do you suggest? Ariel's voice was sharp. We sit here and wait for them to make their move. We make ours first, Min-jae said quietly. All eyes turned to him. Zhao's playing a long game because he thinks he has time. He thinks I'm weak now, domestic, that I've lost my edge. We prove him wrong. We hit back so hard and so fast that he has to respond reactively instead of strategically. That's suicide, David said. He has an army, resources you don't have anymore. But I have something he doesn't. Leverage, information, and the willingness to burn it all down if that's what it takes to keep my family safe. Ariel pushed off the counter. Wait, you're talking about using the information you took, the evidence. But if you release that, won't it implicate you too? Yes, then you'd go to prison. Maybe, probably. But Zhao would be destroyed. His organization would collapse. And you and Lena would be safe. The room fell silent. Min-jae watched his wife process this, saw the calculations running behind her eyes. She was brilliant, his Ariel. She'd always been brilliant. And he could see the exact moment she arrived at the same conclusion he had hours ago. No, she said firmly. There has to be another way. There isn't. Then we find one. We create one. She turned to David. You said Zhao's using cutouts and independence. That means there's a chain of command, layers between him and the actual violence. If we can disrupt that chain, make it too expensive or too dangerous for his contractors to follow through, he'll just hire new ones, Marcus interrupted. Not if we make an example of the current ones. Ariel's eyes were bright now, focused. This was her element, the strategic thinking she'd honed through years of navigating broken systems and institutional corruption. Min-jae, you said Zhao wants revenge. He wants you to suffer. But what he really wants is to restore his reputation, to show the underworld that no one leaves his organization without consequences. Right. So we take that away from him. We expose him not as powerful but as desperate, as weak. We make him look like a man so threatened by his former partner that he's willing to target an infant. The underworld might accept a lot of things, but going after children? That's a line even criminals don't like to cross. David leaned back in his chair, a slow smile spreading across his face. You want to turn his own people against him? I want to make it politically suicidal for him to continue this vendetta. If his own organization sees him as unstable, irrational, willing to violate codes that even they respect, they'll start questioning his leadership. And once that happens, the vultures circle, Min-jae finished. He stared at his wife with a mixture of awe and concern. You're talking about starting a war within his organization. I'm talking about making sure the war he started consumes him instead of us. Ariel looked around the room, meeting each man's eyes in turn. I'm not naive. I know this won't be clean. People will die. But if we're smart, if we're careful, most of those people will be the ones who chose this life. The ones who signed up for violence. Not us. Not our daughter. Marcus whistled low. She's good. She's dangerous, David corrected, but there was respect in his voice. This could work. It would take time, careful manipulation of information, strategic leaks to the right people. But it could work. Min-jae felt something shift in his chest. Hope, maybe, or fear. Or the terrible realization that his wife was becoming something he'd never wanted her to be, a player in a game where the stakes were measured in blood. Ariel, he said carefully, if we do this, if we go down this path, there's no going back. You'll be involved, complicit. The things we'll have to do will be done to protect our daughter, she finished. I'm not asking to become you, Min-jae. I'm not asking to carry a gun or hurt anyone directly. But I'm also not going to be the helpless victim who needs saving. I'm a social worker. I've spent years learning how systems work, how power flows, how to manipulate bureaucracies and institutions to protect vulnerable people. This is just a different kind of system, a different kind of bureaucracy, one where people kill each other. Yes, and I'll have to live with that. We both will. But at least we'll live. She moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his. Together, David cleared his throat. If we're doing this, we need to move fast. The Russian specialist doesn't know we're aware of him yet. That's our advantage. We can use him to send our message. What are you suggesting? We let him make his move, but we're ready for it. We document it, record it, make sure there's evidence of a professional hitman going after a family with an infant. Then we leak that evidence to every major player in every organization from here to Los Angeles. We paint Zhao as the kind of monster who sends assassins after babies. And in the meantime? Ariel asked. While we're waiting for this killer to make his move, what happens to us? You disappear. Not permanently, but long enough to draw him out. We set up a safe house, rotate guards, make you a hard target. When he comes, and he will come, we'll be ready. Min-jae looked at the faces around the room, seeing the calculation, the cold professionalism of men who'd lived their entire lives in the shadow of violence. Then he looked at his wife, seeing the determination there, the refusal to be broken or bowed. Okay, he said finally. We do it your way. But if anything goes wrong, if there's even a hint that Lena is in real danger, I end this my way. No discussion, no debate. Ariel squeezed his hand. Agreed. David stood, already pulling out his phone to make arrangements. I'll have the safe house ready within 2 hours. Marcus, coordinate with our people on surveillance. I want eyes on every approach, every possible angle of attack. This bastard makes one move. I want to know about it before he does. As the men dispersed to their tasks, Min-jae pulled Ariel aside. They stood in the hallway outside Lena's nursery, where they could hear their daughter babbling happily to herself, completely unaware of the storm gathering around her. Are you sure about this? He asked quietly. Really sure? Because once we start down this road, I'm terrified, Ariel admitted. Every part of me wants to grab Lena and run as far and as fast as I can, but I learned something when I almost lost you. Running doesn't solve anything, it just delays the reckoning. She turned to face him fully. You've spent 18 months trying to protect me from your past, but your past is my present now, our present, and I'd rather face it standing beside you than cowering behind you. Min-jae cupped her face in his hands, memorizing every detail, every line and curve. I love you. I need you to know that. Whatever happens, whatever I become, or what we have to do, I love you. I know. That's why this will work. She smiled, sad and brave and beautiful. Love isn't just the soft parts, Min-jae. It's not just the good night, kisses, and the morning coffee. It's also this. Standing together when the world tries to tear you apart. Fighting for what you've built, refusing to let darkness win. From the nursery, Lena started to cry. Ariel went to her, and Min-jae stood alone in the hallway, listening to his wife soothe their daughter, and wondered if love really would be enough. The safe house was a converted warehouse in Red Hook, chosen for its isolation and its defensibility. David's people had swept it thoroughly, installed additional security measures, and stocked it with enough supplies for a prolonged siege. It looked like a prison and felt like a tomb, but it was safer than the brownstone, and that was all that mattered. Ariel settled Lena into the makeshift nursery they'd created in one of the back rooms. The baby was fussy, sensing the tension and disruption to her routine, but eventually she fell asleep clutching her favorite stuffed elephant. Ariel stood over the crib for a long time, just watching her daughter breathe. She's beautiful, David said from the doorway. Looks like you. She has Min-jae's eyes, Ariel replied without turning around. Dark and deep and far too knowing for a baby. He's terrified, you know. Not of Zhao. Not of dying. He's terrified that trying to protect you will destroy you. It won't. You sound very certain. Ariel finally turned to face him. David was older than Min-jae, grayer, with the weathered look of someone who'd seen too much and lived to regret it. But his eyes were kind, and she understood why Min-jae trusted him. I am certain, she said, because I know something about darkness that Min-jae doesn't fully understand. I work with it every day. Abuse victims, addicts, families torn apart by violence and poverty, and systems designed to break them. I've seen people at their absolute worst, and I've also seen them fight their way back. She moved closer to David, her voice dropping. Min-jae thinks his past makes him unique, that the violence he's capable of sets him apart. But it doesn't. Everyone is capable of violence when protecting what they love. The question isn't whether we'll fight, it's how we'll fight, and who will be when the fighting is done. David studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd break under this pressure. Someone he'd have to protect. He smiled faintly. I'm glad I was wrong. A knock on the doorframe interrupted them. Marcus leaned in, his expression grim. We've got movement. The Russian's been spotted, 2 blocks from your brownstone. He's scoping the area, learning the neighborhood. Min-jae appeared behind Marcus, his face carved from stone. How long until he makes his move? Tonight. Tomorrow at the latest. He's working fast, which means Zhao's pushing him. They want this done quickly. Then we accelerate our timeline, Ariel said. She moved past the men, heading toward the main room where David had set up their command center. What's our cover story? Why did we leave the brownstone? Gas leak, David said, following her. Fake emergency, building evacuated, family staying with relatives. It's thin, but it'll hold for a few days. Make it more convincing. Leak a story to local news about contamination concerns, potential long-term displacement. Make it seem like we had no choice but to leave. That way, when the Russian comes looking, he finds an empty house and has to recalibrate. That buys us time, Marcus agreed. But it doesn't solve the fundamental problem. He'll keep looking, keep hunting. Let him look. Ariel pulled out her phone, scrolling through contacts. I need access to Zhao's communication channels. David, you said Angela Chen was feeding him information. She had to be using something. Encrypted messaging, dead drops, something. We recovered her phone. It's locked, but we can crack it. Do it. Fast. I want to know exactly how Zhao communicates with his people, and I want to know who else in his organization might be sympathetic to our position." Min Jae crossed his arms, watching his wife work with a mixture of pride and concern. "What are you planning?" "I'm planning to give Zhao a choice. Stand down, walk away, and preserve his empire, or continue this vendetta and watch everything he's built crumble." She looked up from her phone, her eyes blazing. "We're going to make him afraid. Not of you, Min Jae, of me." The room fell silent. Then David started to laugh, a low chuckle that built into something fuller. "Oh, Zhao has no idea what he started." But Min Jae wasn't laughing. He was staring at his wife, seeing her transform before his eyes into something he'd never imagined she could become. Not violent, not cruel, but ruthless in the way that only truly principled people can be when protecting what they love. "Ariel," he said softly, "there's still time to stop this, to let me handle it the old way. The old way gets you killed or imprisoned. It leaves Lena without a father and me without you." "No." She shook her head firmly. "We're doing this my way, and if that changes me, if that costs me some part of my soul, then so be it. Because the alternative is watching my daughter grow up without her parents, and I won't accept that." She turned back to the laptop David had set up, pulling up files and data with practiced efficiency. And Min Jae realized that his wife had been preparing for this moment longer than he'd known. Every case she'd worked, every system she'd learned to navigate, every time she'd fought institutional corruption or bureaucratic indifference, she'd been building skills, arsenal, understanding. She'd been preparing to fight. The question was whether he could live with what she might become in the process. Angela Chen's phone revealed more than they'd hoped. Encrypted messages spanning 18 months, detailing every move Min Jae had made since leaving the organization. Bank transfers, property purchases, medical records from Ariel's pregnancy. Photos of Lena's first days home from the hospital. "He's been planning this from the beginning," David said, scrolling through the messages. "The moment you left, he started gathering information, building his case, waiting for the right moment to strike." "Why wait so long?" Marcus asked. "Why not move immediately?" "Because immediate retaliation would have been expected," Ariel answered, not looking up from her own laptop. Min Jae had contingencies in place, people watching his back. Zhao needed time for those protections to erode, for Min Jae to relax, to believe he was really free. Then, when his guard was down, when he had the most to lose, she gestured at the screen. Maximum impact, maximum pain. Min Jae felt sick. Every moment of happiness over the past 18 months had been observed, documented, weaponized. His wedding, Lena's birth, quiet Sunday mornings with his family. All of it had been surveillance footage in Zhao's collection. "There's something else," David said, his voice tight. He pulled up a video file and Min Jae recognized the interior of his brownstone, his bedroom. Ariel sleeping, unaware of the camera watching her. "When?" Min Jae's voice was barely above a whisper, but it carried enough rage to make everyone in the room step back. 2 weeks ago. The bugs we found today were recent, but he's been inside your home before. Probably multiple times. I'm going to kill him." "No." Ariel's hand shot out, gripping his wrist with surprising strength. "No, you're not. Because that's exactly what he wants. He wants you to come after him in a rage, to make mistakes, to give him justification for escalating. We're not playing that game. He was in our home. He watched you sleep. I know." Her voice cracked, just slightly, revealing the fear beneath her control. "I know, and I'm terrified, but I'm also angry. And anger, channeled correctly, is more powerful than rage." She pulled her laptop around, showing them what she'd been working on. "This is Zhao's supply chain. Drug routes, money flows, key contacts in law enforcement and government." Angela was meticulous in her documentation, probably as insurance. "We can use this." "How?" "We leak it, not all at once, strategically. Start with the contacts who are most vulnerable, the ones whose careers would be destroyed by exposure. Give them a choice, cut ties with Zhao or face ruin. As his network crumbles, he becomes weaker, more isolated, less capable of mounting an effective operation against us." Marcus was nodding slowly, death by 1,000 cuts. I like it. But it takes time, Min-jae objected. And we don't have time. The Russian is out there right now, planning how to kill my family. So we give the Russian what he wants, Ariel said calmly. Just not in the way he expects. She pulled up another file, this one showing floor plans of the brownstone. We let him break in. We document it. But instead of us being there, we have a police presence. SWAT, detectives, the works. Make it look like we're working with law enforcement, that we've turned state's witness against Zhao. The Russian gets caught, and in the process, we publicly link him to Zhao's organization. That's brilliant, David breathed. Zhao loses his shooter, faces potential investigation, and looks incompetent for hiring someone who got caught so easily. Meanwhile, Ariel continued, we start our information campaign. Leak to the right journalists, the right investigators. Frame it as a story about organized crime targeting innocent families. Make sure Lena's face is in every article. A 3-month-old baby, terrorized by the Mafia. The public pressure alone will force investigations that Zhao can't control or contain. Min-jae stared at the screen, seeing the pieces fall into place. It was elegant, sophisticated. Everything his old approach wasn't. Instead of meeting violence with violence, they were meeting it with something far more dangerous. Exposure. There's risk, he said finally. If we involve the police, if we go public, some of that exposure will fall on me too. My past, my crimes. I know. Ariel met his eyes steadily. And we'll deal with that. Together. But the difference is, your crimes are in the past. You've left that life. You have evidence of trying to change, to build something legitimate. Zhao doesn't. He's still operating, still profiting from violence. The narrative will favor us if we play it right. And if we don't play it right, then we lose everything. She stood, moving to the window to stare out at the dark water of the harbor. But we're going to lose everything anyway if we don't fight. At least this way, we fight on our terms. We make them react to us instead of the other way around. David pulled out his phone. I'll make some calls, get the police set up for tonight. It'll take some convincing, but I know people who owe me favors. I'll coordinate the media leaks, Marcus added. I've got contacts in journalism, people who specialize in investigative pieces on organized crime. Min-jae watched them disperse to their tasks, leaving him alone with Ariel. She was still staring out the window, her reflection ghostly in the glass. Are you okay? He asked quietly. No. She didn't turn around. I'm terrified. I'm angry. I feel violated and manipulated, and I want to scream until my throat is raw, but I can't afford to fall apart right now. Lena needs me strong. You need me strong, so I'll process it later, after this is over, after we're safe. Ariel, do you remember what you asked me in the hospital? After you were shot, after everything came out about your past. Now she did turn, and he saw tears tracking down her face. You asked me if I could live with the violence, if I could accept what you'd been. I remember. I'm asking you the same question now. Can you live with what I'm becoming? Can you accept that protecting our daughter is changing me into someone harder, someone more ruthless? Because I need to know, Min-jae. I need to know that when this is over, you'll still look at me the way you're looking at me now. He crossed the room in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms. I fell in love with your strength, your refusal to be broken or diminished. That hasn't changed. That will never change, even if I become someone who destroys people. Because that's what we're doing. We're destroying Zhao, his empire, his reputation, possibly his life. And I'm the one planning it. You're protecting our family. That's not the same as being cruel. It's not the same as what I was, isn't it? She pulled back to look at him. How many people did you hurt because you told yourself it was necessary? How many times did you justify violence because you convinced yourself the ends justified the means? The question hung between them, sharp and painful. Because she was right. Every decision he'd made, every line he'd crossed, had started with justification, with necessity, with the belief that he was doing what had to be done. The difference, he said slowly, is that you're giving them a choice. You're offering Zhao a way out. If he takes it, if he walks away, no one else has to die. I never gave anyone that choice. I just acted. And if he doesn't take the out, if he doubles down, then we finish what he started. Together. She nodded, seeming to accept this. They stood there for a moment, holding each other in the dimness of the safe house, listening to their daughter sleep in the next room. It felt like the eye of a hurricane, this moment of calm before everything changed. I'm going to check on Lena, Ariel said finally, pulling away. Then I'm going to help David with the police coordination. We'll need to make sure the story is airtight. She left him standing by the window, and Min-jae found himself thinking about choice, about the moment his own life had diverged onto the path of violence. He'd been young, angry, convinced that the world had wronged him and that he had every right to wrong it back. But Ariel had never had that anger. She'd built her life on helping people, on believing in redemption and second chances. Now he was watching that belief system collide with reality, watching her learn that sometimes, no matter how much you want to save everyone, you have to choose your family or theirs, your future or someone else's. He wondered if she would ever forgive herself for making that choice, or if, like him, she would carry the weight of it for the rest of her life. Or his phone buzzed, a message from David. Police are set. Russian made contact with the Brownstone security system 30 minutes ago. He's testing defenses. We estimate he'll move in the next 6 hours. PR Min-jae typed back, ready when you are. Then he went to find his wife, because whatever happened next, they would face it together. The operation went exactly as planned, which Min-jae knew from experience meant it was about to go catastrophically wrong. The Russian, whose name they'd learned was Viktor Sokolov, approached the brownstone at 2 a.m, moving with the practiced ease of someone who'd done this hundreds of times. He disabled the alarm, not knowing it was a dummy system, that the real security had been disabled hours ago. He picked the lock, not knowing that the door would open easily because they wanted him inside. He moved through the house, not knowing that every step was being recorded by hidden cameras the police had installed earlier that day. Min-jae watched the feed from the safe house, his hands clenched into fists as Victor searched room by room, the nursery, the bedroom, looking for targets that weren't there. David had his phone out, coordinating with the SWAT team positioned around the perimeter. Wait for it, David muttered. Let him get comfortable. Let him commit. Victor moved into the kitchen, and that's when Min-jae saw it. A photograph on the refrigerator held by a magnet. Lena's 3-month picture, her face scrunched up in that way babies do, her tiny hand wrapped around Ariel's finger. Victor stared at the photo for a long moment, and Min-jae saw something cross his face. Hesitation? Regret? It was gone too quickly to identify. Then Victor pulled out his phone and made a call. Can we hear it? Min-jae asked. David shook his head. Audio's spotty, but we're recording. We'll have it enhanced later. Victor was arguing with someone, his body language aggressive. He gestured at the photo, at the empty house, clearly unhappy about something. The conversation lasted 2 minutes, then he hung up and moved toward the door. He's leaving, Marcus said. Should we take him now? Wait. Ariel's voice was quiet but firm. She'd been watching the feed intently, her analytical mind working. He's not leaving because he's afraid. He's leaving because he's been called off. What? Look at his body language. He's angry, frustrated. Someone just told him to abort, and he's not happy about it. Which means, Zhao knows, Min-jae finished. He knows we've set a trap. How? David was already pulling up communication intercepts, looking for the leak. Doesn't matter how. What matters is we just lost our advantage. Min-jae stood, his mind racing. If Zhao knows we're working with police, if he knows we're trying to expose him, he'll change tactics. Go underground. We'll never see him coming. Or, Ariel said slowly, he'll make a mistake. He'll rush. People make mistakes when they're angry and feeling pressured. We've already started dismantling his network. 4 of his key contacts received our warning, messages 2 hours ago. By morning, the first news stories will break about police investigating organized crime links to city officials. Zhao's world is collapsing, and he knows it. That makes him dangerous, but it also makes him vulnerable. The feed showed Victor leaving through the front door, melting into the shadows. The SWAT team didn't move, and Minjai understood why. Without Victor actually attempting violence, they had no legal justification for arrest. The trap had failed. Minjai's phone rang. Unknown number. He answered on speaker. "You've gotten clever, Dragon." Zhao's voice was smooth, amused. "Using your little social worker's brain instead of your own. I admit, I didn't expect that. What do you want, Zhao?" "The same thing I've always wanted. What you took from me. My dignity. My reputation. The information you're using to destroy everything I've built. Then you shouldn't have come after my family." "Your family?" Zhao laughed, the sound like breaking glass. "You really think you have a family? You think you can just put on a costume and play house and forget what you are? You're a killer, Minjai, a monster in a cardigan. And sooner or later, your pretty little wife is going to see that. Your daughter is going to see that. They're going to understand what you really are." "I'm what you made me," Minjai said quietly. "No. You were always this. I just gave you permission." A pause. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to give me the information. All of it. Every account. Every file. Every piece of leverage you have. And in return, I'll let you keep your illusions. I'll let you pretend to be a good man. And if I refuse, then I'll make sure your daughter grows up knowing exactly what her father was. Every murder, every torture, every innocent person you destroyed in the name of profit. I'll make sure she knows that the hands tucking her in at night are stained with blood. And I'll make sure your wife understands that she didn't save you. She just delayed the inevitable." The line went dead. Ariel was pale, her hand pressed against her mouth. "He's not going to stop." "No," Minjai agreed. "He's not. This isn't about business anymore. It's personal. He wants to destroy everything I am, everything I've tried to become." "Then we destroy him first." David looked up sharply. "What are you suggesting?" Ariel's eyes were bright, feverish. "I'm suggesting we stop playing defense. Stop reacting. We have enough information to bury Zhao 10 times over. So we release it. All of it. Tonight. Every account, every contact, every crime. We flood law enforcement with so much evidence that they can't ignore it. We make Zhao's arrest inevitable." "That exposes Minjai too," Marcus pointed out. "I know. But it also protects him. He'll have cooperated with authorities, provided evidence, helped bring down a major criminal organization. That counts for something in sentencing, and more importantly," she turned to Minjai, "it ends this. Permanently. Zhao goes to prison. His organization crumbles. We get to live." Minjai understood what she wasn't saying. That we might not include him. That cooperating with authorities might mean prison time, years away from Lena, from watching her grow up. But it also meant she would grow up safe. She would grow up without the shadow of violence hanging over her. "Okay," he said. "We do it. Release everything." "Minjai," David started. "Do it, David. Send everything to every agency you can think of. FBI, DEA, State Police, IRS. Make it impossible for anyone to cover up or ignore." David hesitated, then nodded. His fingers flew over the keyboard, uploading files to secure servers, composing emails to investigators he'd cultivated over decades. It took 20 minutes. 20 minutes to dismantle everything Zhao Wei had built, everything Minjai had once been part of. When it was done, when the last file had been sent, Ariel took Minjai's hand. "Let's go home," she said. "The brownstone isn't safe. I don't care. I want to sleep in our bed tonight. I want Lena in her nursery. If this is the last night we have as a family before everything changes, I want it to be in our home." Minjai looked at David, who shrugged. "SWAT's still positioned around the brownstone. And after tonight, after everything goes public, Zhao will be too busy running to worry about revenge. You should be safe." Should be. The two most dangerous words in any language. But Ariel was already gathering Lena's things, already moving toward the door with the determination that had first attracted him to her. And Minjay realized that he would follow her anywhere, into any danger, because the alternative, living without her, was unthinkable. They drove back to Brooklyn in silence, David's people providing escort. The brownstone looked the same as when they'd left it, but felt different. Violated. Every shadow held potential threats. Every sound was an alarm. But Ariel moved through the house with confidence, checking locks, closing curtains, settling Lena into her crib as if this were just another night. As if their world wasn't about to explode around them. Minjay stood in the doorway of the nursery, watching his wife sing to their daughter, the same lullaby she'd sung the night before, about stars and dreams and safety. "I'm sorry," he said when the song ended. "For what? For bringing this into your life, for making you into someone who has to think like a criminal to protect your family. For—" "Stop!" She came to him, taking his face in her hands. "You didn't make me anything. I chose this. I chose you, knowing what you'd been. I chose to fight instead of run. Those were my decisions, Minjay, not yours, and I won't let you carry that guilt. But if something happens to you, to Lena, it won't. Because we're smarter than Zhao. We're more prepared. And we have something he doesn't." "What?" "Each other." She kissed him, soft and fierce. "Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever consequences come from tonight's decisions, we face them together. That's the promise I made when I married you, for better or worse. And I meant it." They went to bed holding each other, listening to Lena breathe through the baby monitor, trying not to think about what morning would bring. Dawn came cold and bright. Minjay's phone exploded with notifications before the sun fully rose. News alerts, text messages from numbers he hadn't heard from in years, emails from reporters requesting comment. The information they'd released was everywhere. Federal investigators launch major probe into organized crime network. Documents reveal corruption spanning multiple agencies. Anonymous source provides evidence in ongoing investigation. By noon, Zhao Wei's name was in every major publication. Photos of him with politicians, with business leaders, all suddenly toxic associations. The first arrests came within hours. Low-level operators, people whose names appeared in the files. The news cycles churned, each revelation building on the last. Minjay watched it unfold from his living room, his laptop open, tracking the cascade. Beside him, Ariel fed Lena, her eyes also on the screen. They didn't speak. There was nothing to say. They'd set fire to the underworld, and now they had to watch it burn. The knock on the door came at 3 in the afternoon. Minjay knew who it would be before he opened it. Federal agents, badges out, warrants ready. "Minjay Park, we need you to come with us. We have some questions about your involvement in the organization described in the documents filed last night." He nodded. He'd expected this, prepared for it. He turned to find Ariel standing behind him, Lena in her arms. "It's okay," he said. "This was always part of the plan. I know." Her voice was steady, but her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "I'll call the lawyer. We'll figure this out. Take care of her. Always." The agents let him out, and Minjay found himself grateful for the handcuffs. They made it official, made it real. He was being arrested for his crimes, for his past, for all the things he'd done before Ariel taught him there was another way to be strong. But as they put him in the car, as he looked back at his brownstone and saw his wife standing in the doorway holding their daughter, he felt something unexpected. Relief. Because Zhao Wei's empire was collapsing. Because the threat to his family was neutralized. Because whatever happened to him now, Ariel and Lena were safe. That was worth any price. The interrogation lasted 6 hours. Federal agents, DEA representatives, officers from multiple jurisdictions, all wanting to know his role in Zhao's organization, what crimes he'd committed, what information he could provide. Min-jae told them everything. Every operation he'd run, every person he'd hurt, every law he'd broken. He didn't try to minimize or justify. He simply stated facts, provided corroboration, gave them what they needed to build their cases. The prosecutor who finally interviewed him seemed almost disappointed by his cooperation. "You understand you're looking at serious prison time," the prosecutor said. 20 years minimum, even with your cooperation. I understand. You have a daughter, 3 months old. You won't see her grow up. I know. And you're okay with that? Min-jae thought about Lena's face, about Ariel's determination, about the life they'd built in defiance of everything he'd been. I'm okay with her growing up safe. If that requires me being in prison, then that's what happens. The prosecutor studied him for a long moment. Your wife is something else? Yes, she is. The evidence you provided is comprehensive. It's going to take down the entire network. Zhao Wei, his lieutenants, dozens of corrupted officials. It's the biggest organized crime case this office has seen in decades. Good, but it also exposes you, everything you've done. There's no walking away from this. I'm not trying to walk away. I'm trying to make sure my family can... The prosecutor nodded slowly. We'll recommend leniency based on your cooperation. But I can't make promises. The judge will decide your fate. I understand. They released him that evening on bail that Ariel must have arranged somehow. He walked out of the federal building to find her waiting by the car, Lena asleep in her carrier. She looked exhausted, beautiful, unbreakable. Hey, she said simply, hey. They drove home in silence. Inside the brownstone, Ariel put Lena to bed while Min-jae stood in the kitchen, staring at the spot where the brick had crashed through the window 3 days ago. 3 days that felt like 3 years. David called, Ariel said, coming down the stairs. Zhao's been arrested. They found him trying to flee to Singapore. He'll be extradited back to face charges. It's over then. This part is. But Min-jae, the prosecutor said. I know what they said. 20 years, minimum. It's what I deserve. It's not what you deserve. You've changed. You've built a new life. That should count for something. It does. It counts toward Lena growing up safe. It counts toward you not having to look over your shoulder every day. That's enough. Ariel's composure finally cracked. She sank onto the couch, her hands covering her face. It's not enough. It's not fair. You were trying to protect us. You cooperated. You helped take down an entire criminal network, and your reward is prison? Min-jae sat beside her, pulling her close. My reward is knowing you're safe. Knowing Lena will grow up without this shadow hanging over her. If I have to pay for my past to secure her future, that's not punishment. That's privilege. I can't do this without you. Yes, you can. You've already proven that. These last few days, the way you fought, the way you planned and strategized and refused to break, Ariel, you're stronger than you know. Stronger than I ever was. But I don't want to be strong without you. He held her while she cried, while the weight of everything they'd faced finally broke through her defenses. Lena stirred in the nursery, and Ariel went to her, maternal instinct overriding grief. Min-jae listened to her soothe their daughter and tried to memorize the sound. The trial date was set for 6 months out. In the meantime, Min-jae existed in a strange limbo. His passport was confiscated. He wore an ankle monitor. He was allowed to stay with his family, but always with the knowledge that prison waited at the end. He used the time well. Mornings with Lena, teaching her to smile, to laugh, to recognize his face. Afternoons helping Ariel as she returned to work, trying to rebuild some normalcy. Evenings talking about everything and nothing, storing up memories against the lean years ahead. Zhao Wei's trial was faster. He had no cooperation to offer, no redemption arc to plead. The evidence was overwhelming. He was sentenced to life without parole, and Min-jae felt something close to satisfaction when he heard the news. His own trial was quieter. The prosecution laid out his crimes in clinical detail. Murder, racketeering, extortion. The defense argued cooperation, rehabilitation, the birth of his daughter as a turning point. The judge listened to it all with an impassive expression. Ariel testified. She spoke about the man Min-jae had become, about his efforts to leave his past behind, about the love he showed their daughter every day. Her voice never wavered, but Min-jae could see the cost of every word. The sentencing came on a Tuesday, 12 years, with possibility of parole after 8. Less than the prosecutor had warned, but still an eternity. Still most of Lena's childhood. Still years of missing milestones, of seeing his daughter through glass and limited phone calls. Min-jae turned to look at Ariel as the sentence was read. She was crying silently, her hand pressed against her mouth. But she also nodded. They'd known this was coming. They'd prepared as much as anyone could prepare for their family being torn apart. "I love you," he mouthed. "I love you too," she mouthed back. He was taken into custody immediately. No time for goodbyes, no time to hold his daughter one more time. Just the cold efficiency of the justice system, turning him from a person into a number. But as they led him away, Min-jae looked back one last time. Ariel was standing, Lena in her arms. His wife, his daughter. Safe, alive. Free from the violence that had defined his life for so long. And he realized something that made the handcuffs feel lighter, that made the prospect of years behind bars bearable. He'd won. Not the way he used to win, through force and fear and blood, but through sacrifice. Through choosing his family over his freedom, through letting go of power to embrace something infinitely more valuable. Love. The prison transport drove through Brooklyn, past the brownstone he'd bought to symbolize a new life, past the park where he'd walked with Ariel while she was pregnant, past all the markers of the future he wouldn't get to live. But he didn't feel the loss as acutely as he'd expected, because that future, Lena growing up safe, Ariel building the life she deserved, that future was still happening. He just wouldn't be there to see it in person. He'd see it through letters, through photos, through the stories Ariel would tell during prison visits. It wasn't the ending he'd imagined when he first held his daughter. But it was an ending where she got to grow up, where she got to be a child without fear, without danger, without the weight of his sins crushing her future. That was worth everything. The envelope arrived at the brownstone 6 months after Min-jae entered prison. Ariel opened it with Lena balanced on her hip, now 9 months old and babbling constantly. Inside was a single photograph of their daughter, taken the day before at the park. Her blood ran cold. Then she saw the note underneath. "Your husband's sacrifice was noted. His enemies are gone. His family is protected, but protection is earned every day. Stay vigilant. Stay strong. Some debts are paid in full. Others compound interest. No signature. No threat." Just a reminder that the world Min-jae had left behind still remembered, still watched. Ariel held the photo for a long moment, then walked to the fireplace and burned it. Lena laughed at the flames, reaching for them with chubby hands. Her daughter, Min-jae's daughter, safe, alive, free. "It's okay, baby," Ariel whispered, holding her close. "Daddy made sure we're okay, and I'm going to make sure we stay that way." She picked up her phone and called David. There was work to do. Because Min-jae had taught her something important in those last desperate days before his arrest, peace wasn't a destination, it was a daily choice. A constant vigilance. A refusal to let darkness win even when it never stopped trying. And she would choose peace. Every single day. For Lena. For Min-jae. For the future they'd fought so hard to protect. The photograph burned to ash. The threat dissolved with it. And Ariel smiled, fierce and determined and unbreakable. Because love wasn't just the soft moments. It was also this, standing watch, staying strong, refusing to surrender, and she would never, ever surrender. If you enjoyed this story of love, sacrifice, and the price of redemption, please hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think about Ariel's transformation and Min-jae's choice. Would you have done the same for your family? Like this video if you want to see more complex stories about the cost of leaving violence behind. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss what happens next in this saga. Thank you for watching until the end. Your support means everything.